Well, good morning to you. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion on this Tuesday morning. And wow, what an explosive, incredible day yesterday. You've heard those words come out of my mouth, it seems like, for the last couple of weeks, it feels like. But yesterday, absolutely incredible day. We were in the pre-market up 1,700 points. We did ease back off of that, but we basically traded for the most part the rest of the day somewhere between, call it 1,100, 1,300 points to the upside. And I'm talking about the Dow. Unbelievable move to the upside. S&P was up well over 100 points early on and then traded somewhere between 50 and 100 points to the upside. Some definite fluctuation there. Early on, we had the NASDAQ not really participating. Matter of fact, it was completely flat. So a completely different set of circumstances than we have been seeing throughout a lot of these really, really aggressively, heavily traded days. And I'm going to tell you just how much volume we had yesterday in just a second. But what were some of the leadership roles yesterday? What was really pressing on that Dow to the upside? What was really the fuel behind the S&P being up as many points as that was up yesterday, up 157 points to pre-market? Well, take a look at these financials. You look at something like an American Express yesterday, absolutely rocketing to the upside and leading the Dow. You had JP Morgan, you had Goldman Sachs, we had Visa, we had Capital One. Early on, that stock was up about 15%. And I say early on because a lot of the percentages that were really catapulting to the upside, some of those really did come in significantly by the end of the day. Still very, very positive, but nothing close to where they really had hit earlier in the day. But industrials, another area completely exploding to the upside. You had Boeing, you had Dow, you had Honeywell, you had Caterpillar. We also had 3M, all working to the upside. You can understand now when you hear those names and the catapulting moves from many of these names yesterday, especially early on. But as the day went by, we started to ease back a little bit. But before we did, we still had energy. Energy was explosive to the upside. The XLE, now that entire index, at one point was up over 15% yesterday. Well, some of the drivers, take a look at something like Chevron, which was absolutely on fire yesterday. Another one of those Dow leaders as well. You had Diamondback, we had Valero, we had HollyFrontier, we had National Oil Well Varco. All of those beta names definitely participating in a big way to the upside. You know, early on, I took a look and I was looking over at the XLF. That was up 10% yesterday, 10% in a single day. We had the XLI up about 5% yesterday. We had healthcare up a couple of percent yesterday as well. Then take a look over at the cruise ships, take a look at the hotels, take a look at the casinos. Wynn was up 27% at one point in time. We had Carnival Cruise was rocketing up 35+% yesterday. Marriott on the hotel side, that's a big market cap name. That was up over 15%. Then look at over at some of these airlines. United was up over at 26%. American was up over 17%. Royal Caribbean was up 28%. You get the idea. The names that had been absolutely hammered to the downside without any hope of, well, I guess hope was still there, but just wondering when would we get anything close to a vaccine? Well, certainly that was some of the news yesterday, the primary news yesterday, Pfizer, and all of that potential that people are very, very excited about catapulting these markets to the upside. There's no doubt about it. I think you could give a little bit of maybe some of the credit also to a little confirmation that potentially it looked like Biden, but now that looks like that even might be unfolding a little bit in terms of the presidency. So we'll see how that all folds up. That's really not the point. The point was yesterday, this was a real big, massive run coming out of Pfizer. So talk about the volatility index all the time. We talked about last week, 37 to 25. We got down towards 24 yesterday. We got as low as 22.5, but finished up somewhere close to that 24, 25 sort of a range. Makes a little sense. That was a huge move, percentage-wise, massive move across all these major indices. Now, I mentioned volume. Volume is unbelievable right now in this world of ours that you and I and hopefully all of you are understanding more and more and more. And hopefully if you're not, you're getting educated in it and getting a better understanding of the derivatives markets. Yesterday, 48.5 million contracts. I mean, that is a monstrous number, guys. I was getting excited the other day over the 33 million, the 34 million. Disappointed a little bit when we get down towards 25, 27 million contracts, even though in any other year, those are numbers that are just absolutely extraordinary. We've gotten spoiled. I've gotten spoiled. But 48.5 million contracts yesterday, and it was spread out. It was spread out across so many names. I'm looking at Apple that averages about 2 million per day. Apple actually was around a little bit less than their average. There were 1.8 million contracts, still a huge number, of course, but it gives you a little idea. When I go through this list of some of the top 4 or 5 or 6 names yesterday, very, very solid, really impressive performance, but it just shows you how much more broad spread the volume was yesterday as well. And I talk about 48.5 million. I just still can't get over how great that is. NEO traded just under 1 million contracts yesterday, along with Bank of America, both pushing towards that million contract range. Pfizer, of course, that makes total sense. About 800,000 contracts yesterday. American Airlines, about 800,000 contracts yesterday. Tesla, somewhere in the ballpark of about 700,000 contracts yesterday. Gives you a big swath of the top end, but that's not even close to the numbers that we got to with 48.5 million. So it just shows you how much participation there was across so many different sectors. It was absolutely an incredible run to the upside. So that incredible run did kind of ease back. You look at the latter part of the day, the final 30 minutes, the Dow absolutely dropped about 500 points. We still finished up now. Let's not overdo this, but dropped about 500 points in 30 minutes. That's pretty significant to finish up about 830 points yesterday. In the final hour or so, you look over at the NASDAQ, it dropped 200 points. It actually finished lower by 180 points. So it was riding along that area of flat, a little higher, a little lower. It would happen to be in the last hour or so. That was another name. And oh, by the way, the NASDAQ did surpass 12,000 yesterday when it was up at those highs. S&P, it finished up about 41 points, but it had been up significantly before that and dropped about 50 points as we got into the latter part of the session. We talk about that all the time, how amazing that's been, and that's been something that's been going on. That's been a theme this entire year for sure, is that final 30 minutes or 1 hour, in some cases 2 hours or 3 hours, but that final section of the day where it's just amazing. Moves to the upside, moves to the downside. Yesterday, 500 points coming off that Dow. That was pretty significant. We're making up a little bit of that today, but not a whole lot, quite frankly. So in the pre-market, we were looking up about 150 points on the Dow. That looked pretty solid. S&P down about 9 points. You look over at the NASDAQ, wow, that was down about 150 points in the pre-market. So a little shifting, a little movement, but it just shows you that disconnect that we talked about, and we've talked about this many times before. Been on the positive side most of this year where the NASDAQ's been outperforming, but right now you are definitely seeing the Dow outperforming. So we got to the opening. We didn't shift around too much, but up about 160, 170 points or so. The S&P still hanging around, down about 6 points. NASDAQ down about 100 and a quarter. Get into this first 30 minutes of the day, and suddenly you got a Dow that was actually only up about 60. Now we've rallied back. Now that we're about 45 minutes into the trading session, we're up 170 points. So call it kind of an unchanged, but a little bit of volatility in there as well. I'm taking a look at the NASDAQ right now. It's down 182 points. I don't know that that is the low of the day so far, but it's got to be pretty close. Down about 1.5% right now. I'm looking at the S&P also. The lower part of the day for the S&P, it's down about 15 points. Nothing big there. It's only about 0.5%. We're up about 0.5% on the Dow, but again, NASDAQ down about 1.6% to the downside. We had crude starting to work again today. It's back up and over 40 and now pushing on 41 for crude oil. So that's pretty interesting. Volatility index up and over this 25 level. And, you know, it's sort of right where we kind of finished up yesterday. We've been moving around a little bit, but not a whole lot. You just heard me go through some of the numbers in the pre and first 15 minutes or so, the first 30 minutes or so, and not a whole lot of movement there. We're looking at the volatility index. It's hovering around 2550 right now. So that's something definitely to keep track of. Also, what kind of volumes are we going to have today after yesterday? Absolutely unbelievable. I would say we would be really, really lucky to be much near that 30 million mark after yesterday's 48.5 million. But that all could change in just a heartbeat, certainly, as oftentimes we do, and news related. So if we hear more from Pfizer, if we hear more from some of the other drug companies, if we hear more on the elections, certainly there are definitely plenty of catalysts out there that can still mix things and move things around a little bit. Speaking of mixing things, take a look over at the semiconductors right now, and that area getting hit pretty good today. You look at biotech, That's kind of mixed. There's some serious nice moves and bounce moves to the upside in some names, Amgen and Biogen and some of those names. There are other names that are actually dragging a little bit to the downside as well. Technology definitely dragging a little bit. So when you put all three of those different categories together, you can understand NASDAQ now down nearly 200 points. So that's what's really contributing to that right now. You got technology getting hit to the downside. I'll give you a couple of the names that are really sort of leading on that push to the downside. Zoom. Why is that? Well, if we are getting something positive going right now with some of these various vaccines and so forth, maybe Zoom's going to take a little bit of a hit. People are starting to get in front of that. So Zoom down right now. That's down fairly significantly right now. JD down. Nvidia, which has been absolutely a rocket ship, as we know, for most of this year, that's down as well. Xilinx, AMD, Facebook, Salesforce, Microsoft, Apple. You can go through a really long list. When you're down 200 points on the NASDAQ, there's pretty good participation to the downside off of many of those various names. So let's hit a little bit of this unusual option activity. I will be on the halftime report today. Yeah, I don't have my usual button-down shirt on those kind of days. It's a double animal style for me today. I got the noon show. I got the 5 o'clock show with the Fast Money crew and Melissa Lee. That's going to be exciting. But the halftime show is always really exciting for me because we get a chance to talk about the unusual option activity. If you take a look at what really happened last week, I was on Wednesday and Friday last week, gave unusual option activity. Let me tell you something. Some of those names absolutely rocketed yesterday. Take a look at Wynn, Abercrombie. Take a look at Pfizer. Some of these various names over the last maybe week and a half, 2 weeks that we've had for unusual, you get the idea. I think the Pfizer actually goes back to late October, October 20th, I believe, is when we had the Pfizer. They were buying 20,000 of those December calls to the upside. Wow, those really exploded, those 39 calls. I think they went from 80 cents to over $3. Those are the kind of trades you absolutely love. How about that Wynn trade? Absolutely an explosive move. Those 77.5 calls that rocketed up. Stock got well over $100 a share. So those things, I think when I last looked, they were up around that 26 level in terms of where they were. $7 option going to 20. Just unbelievable. And the unusual option activity continues. And we will definitely hit on some of that today on the halftime report. Always if there's time. Harmony Gold's the name today that's hitting for unusual real early for me right now. Now, I'm really excited about that because I'm excited about the material space. That's one of those areas in the marketplace, doesn't get talked about very often, but I think it should get talked about a little bit more. You got industrials, you got energy, and you've got materials. Well, materials definitely falls down that line. You know, you go through all those various names, but in the material space, you got names like Cliffs. You got Freeport-McMoRan. That's been an absolute animal. We've had that for unusual multiple times, and that rolling to the upside. You've got Alcoa. You got U.S. Steel. You got Steel Dynamics. You got ArcelorMittal. All these various names. Today, I'm going to give you Harmony Gold. Harmony Gold trading at about $5, about a little bit more than that, $5.10 a share. They're buying the January 5 calls, 10,000 of those trading, going for about 75 cents. So intrinsically, that's about a 65 cents of premium that we're talking about here. So can this stock, can gold make a run again? And if so, this is one of those names, Harmony Gold, that could be one of those participants to the upside. Pretty interesting, pretty nice size. When you look at 10,000 times that 80 cents of that option, that's a pretty nice size trade. And we always are looking for the more size and the dollar amounts really give us a nice beefy kind of a thing. That really does stand out for us. And last week it certainly did, and it certainly worked out in many cases from the unusual option activity. Really excited here at Market Rebellion. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, get educated. If you don't understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the volumes, get educated. 48 million contracts yesterday. Are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. But if it doesn't make sense to you, if you don't understand the derivatives markets, it really doesn't mean all that much to you. So please get educated. Very, very important. I've been saying this. This isn't just new. This is something that we've been talking about since I started on CNBC and started on Fast Money in January of 2007. So that this whole world that we're in, the derivatives world, has exploded to the upside, continues to explode to the upside, and it's a place to be. But you have to understand, you got to understand risk, you have to understand the tolerance, you have to understand risk reward, all of that. That's something where our educators do an absolutely amazing job. So definitely tap into us for that. Folks, have a great day of trading. I'll see you at noon.